Alright guys, this is the second time I'm recording this battle. This is going to be its own Pokemon Showdown video. It's one battle, but it's 7 minutes, and it's kind of a funny battle. But yeah, so this is a 7-minute battle, and this is the second time I'm recording it because the first time, for some reason, the whole thing wasn't in frame for some reason. I don't know why, but let's get started. So I start with Whiscash, they start with Wormadam, I switch into Simisear, and they use Toxic, which poisons my Simisear. I'm hurt by the poison. They switch into Passimian. I use Fire Blast, which misses on Passimian. I'm hurt by the poison. Then they use Earthquake, which leaves me at 2%. I use Nasty Plot, and then I die to the poison. So then I go into Celebi, and they switch into Simisear, and then I use Psychic, which leaves them at 53%. They're here by leftovers, so I switch back into Whiscash when they use Fire Blast, which I resist, and they're healed by leftovers. So then they switch into Meganium, and I use Earthquake, which they resist, so then they are healed by leftovers. I switch into Ninjask, and they use Aromatherapy, and they switch back into Simisear. There's a lot of switching in this battle. And I use X-Scissor, they're healed by leftovers. My Speed Boost kicks in, I use Protect, and they use Fire Blast. So then they're healed by leftovers. My Speed Boost kicks up again. I use Baton Pass into Whiscash, and then they use Fire Blast. And then they get a crit, and they switch into Meganium. So I use Earthquake, and that only does 16%. They're healed by leftovers, so I switch back into Ninjask. They use Aromatherapy, and they're healed by leftovers. So then they go into Emolga, and they resist X-Scissor. And my Speed Boost kicks up again, so they use Baton Blast. And in the chat, he just told me to man up, and I use Thunderbolt. They use Thunderbolt, and they use Meganium. I use Stone Edge. I switch into Ninjask again, and then they use Synthesis. And this battle is really long. It's over 50 turns. I use Substitute, so my Speed Boost kicks in again. So I use Protect, and then they switch into a Substitute. And I'm healed by leftovers. They're healed by leftovers. My Speed Boost kicks in. I use X-Scissor, which gets a crit on their Substitute. They use Fire Blast, which fades my Substitute as well. So we're both healed by leftovers. My Speed Boost kicks up. I use Protect. They use Fire Blast, which I'm protected from. And my leftovers leaves me at 99%. My Speed Boost kicks up again. So then I use a Substitute. They use Fire Blast, which fades my Substitute. And I'm healed by leftovers, and they're healed by leftovers. And then the Speed Boost kicks up again. And then they switch into Wormadam, and I use Protect, which is failing, obviously. So now my speed is maxed out. And X-Scissor is super effective on Wormadam, and they use Toxic, which poisons my Ninjask. So they use Protect, and I use X-Scissor, which they are protected from. So then I'm healed by leftovers, and then I'm hurt by the Toxic. And then somehow they use Protect again. I'm not quite sure how, but I used X-Scissor, and they're protected from it. So then they switch into Meganium again. I use X-Scissor, which is super effective. Does about 50% damage. They're healed up to 56. My Toxic hurts. So then I use Protect. They use Synthesis, and I'm healed by leftovers, but that Toxic does a lot of damage. So then they're down to 42%, and they use Leech Seed, which heals them up a lot and does a lot of damage to me, and the Toxic finishes the job for them. So they use Giga Drain on Dugong, which is super effective, and that heals them. So I use the Perish Song, and then I use Protect after the leftovers. Excuse me. So they use Leech Seed, again, which I'm protected from, so it didn't work. We're both healed by our leftovers. The Perish Song is counting down. They use Giga Drain. I'm at 18%. I use Ice Beam. And then the Perish Song counts down one more time. We're both healed by our leftovers. So then I use Protect so they don't kill me, and then the Perish Song counts down to 0, and we both faint. So then they go into Emolga, and I go into Girafarig. They use Baton Pass, and they go into Passimian. So I use Hyper Voice. They use Close Combat, which leaves me at 23%. I use Thunderbolt, and they're at 23%. So then they use Close Combat again, which knocks out Girafarig. So there goes that. So then I go back into Whiscash. They use Close Combat. I'm at 0%. And this, guys, is where the battle gets funny. So I go into Celebi. They use Close Combat, which I resist. And then I use Psychic, which knocks out Passimian. Excuse me. So then they go into Tyrantrum. I use Leaf Storm, which does way over half, does a lot of damage. They use Dragon Dance. I'm healed by Leftovers, but my special attack is lower. So they use Superpower, which lowers their defenses. And I use Leaf Storm, which knocks out Tyrantrum. So then they go into Simisear, and they use Fire Blast, and they miss. And then I use Psychic, which doesn't do very much damage, and we're both healed by our Leftovers. And then they use Substitute, and I use Psychic, which damages their Substitute, and we're both healed by Leftovers once again. They use Fire Blast, which is super effective, leaving me at 24%. I use Psychic on them, and we're both healed by Leftovers once again. They use Grass Knot, which I resist. I use Recover, and I feel like at this point they're messing with me using grass moves. Then they use Hidden Power, which gets a crit, and I use Psychic, which puts them at 40%. And we're both healed by Leftovers. They use Substitute, and I use, yeah. Alright guys, I'm very sorry about that. I just paused. I got interrupted again. This is the third time. I just started back where I left off in the last one. So, yeah. So, next turn is where we left off. So, they use Hidden Power, which gets a crit. I use Psychic, which puts them at 40. They're healed by Leftovers. They use Substitute, which puts them at 22. I use Nasty Plot, and that raises my special attack because it's really low. And they use Grass Knot, and I use Nasty Plot again to make my special attack normal. So then they use Grass Knot, which is not very effective, obviously. I feel like they're messing with me. I use Psychic, and they use Hidden Power. So I use Psychic again, which finally knocks out this Simisear. So then they go into Wormadam. I use Psychic, which leaves them at 11%. They use Toxic, which misses. I'm healed by Leftovers. They are healed by Leftovers. They use Protect. I use Psychic. They're protected from it. So then they use Protect again, and it fails, obviously. And I use Nasty Plot once again. So then I use Psychic, which knocks out Wormadam. And they go into Emolga. They use Baton Pass, which fails because it's their last Pokemon. I use Psychic, which knocks out Emolga. So, this was a hilarious battle. A very long battle. Over 7 minutes of commentary. Non-stop talking. Oh, more like freaking, like 12, 13 minutes. No, it's like 20 minutes for me because I did this 3 times. I really need a drink. So yeah, this is its own episode. Awesome Celebi sweep. And yeah, so hope you enjoyed. If you did, slap that like button. That hurt me. Yeah, so bye.